Moving on to Ukraine, extraordinary reporting from the Wall Street Journal, if we can put this first up. According to the U.S. intelligence sources, the U.S. warned Ukraine, please do not attack the Nordstream pipeline. This follows previous reporting that came from the Washington Post that said that a unidentified European intelligence service had told the United States, hey, look out, the Ukrainians are planning in June to rent a boat. Half a dozen of them are going to go blow up the Nord Stream pipeline in connection with this kind of NATO exercise that's going on. We now know that that was the Netherlands, according to the Wall Street Journal. So Dutch intelligence told the U.S. intelligence then relayed it to Germany. Now we know, according to these sources, that the U.S. also reached out to Ukraine and said, do not do this. And there's a fascinating line in the Wall Street Journal piece that says the United States asked its Ukrainian counterparts whether it was true that they were planning to blow up the Nord Stream pipeline. And the Wall Street Journal says it is not known what the response from the Ukrainians was. Did the Ukrainians feel like they had a green light at that point? Despite whatever warnings were being given by the United States, the reporting is that they told them not to do it. They did it anyway.
Right.
So are they a rogue client, or was there some back channeling that maybe this is something that the United States is comfortable with?
I think this is an absolutely huge report for so many reasons, because particularly what you just flagged, which is this is a quote from the Wall Street Journal report. Quote, it couldn't be determined how the Ukrainians responded. What do you mean it couldn't be determined how the Ukrainians responded? Because clearly this is a leak from the CIA to the Wall Street Journal.
In other words, the CIA won't tell them.
Exactly.
Right.
But the CIA will tell them that they knew in advance of the plan, which gets to when we were talking about the Washington Post story not too long ago. It really felt like American intel agencies trying to wash their hands of this and say, we know who it is. But in the process of saying we know who it was and it wasn't us, they're revealing that they may have been able to stop it. And I think this is connected with more big news. This is also from the Wall Street Journal. We can go ahead and put B2 up on the screen. Think about these two stories at the same time. Here's the headline. U.S. set to approve depleted uranium tank rounds for Ukraine. This is from the Journal. The Biden administration is expected to provide Ukraine with depleted uranium rounds following weeks of internal debate about how to equip the Abrams tanks the U.S. is giving to Kyiv. U.S. officials said Monday the proposal has been debated at the White House, where some officials have expressed concern that sending the rounds might open Washington to criticism that it was providing a weapon that may carry health and environmental risks. Okay, so more stuff headed over to Ukraine, and at the same time, we don't even know what was going on with the CIA and with Ukraine. Clearly, we were not involved in their plans when it came to blowing up the Nord Stream pipeline. We may have had knowledge and didn't stop it, or per the Wall Street Journal's report, it said the CIA actually determined they couldn't take it seriously. They didn't think Ukraine had the capacity. That's an exact quote from here. They didn't think Ukraine had the capacity to carry out such an attack. So we can be that ignorant of actually the country, the military operations of the country that we are sending so much equipment to. And these two headlines can appear basically side by side in a matter of days together. It's remarkable.
But I think providing depleted uranium to a war effort in this part of the world would only matter if there's some type of significant agricultural production that goes on over there. Is there? Well, are you familiar with whether or not in Ukraine and this area, do they grow much wheat or anything over there? Do they supply much to the global population? Because if not, I don't think the globe has much to worry about it. But if they do, then maybe dropping depleted uranium rounds in the breadbasket of the world is not the most thought-out plan.
You'd think. And yet, this is in the context of the spring offensive, which became a summer offensive. We were hearing spring offensive for so long, turns into a summer offensive. And so the argument from Ukraine, this is also in the Journal report, is that if you don't supply us with this heavy equipment now, then Russia is able to hold their own during the offensive. Offensive doesn't go as planned, and you start losing support in Congress. Support from Congress starts to wane because the momentum has shifted. People are getting exhausted of the war, so you better give us what we need now. But of course, this has been the argument at every point in the war. We need to go full in, pedal to the metal, every step of the way, because if we don't, we're going to have to keep going pedal to the metal every step of the way.
Yeah, and it has its
vicious cycle.
Right, it has its own momentum and its own logic. if you're going to supply the tanks under pressure, you finally agree, okay, we're doing these tanks. Then if you only supply the kind of generic rounds, then they start to get wiped out by Russian forces. And so then you come back and say, well, if you're supplying the tanks, then you got to give us the depleted uranium rounds because the tanks aren't as effective if you don't give us those depleted uranium rounds. You do that, you're like, oh, well, we need air support for these because now we've got these multi-million-dollar tanks that are just getting lit up all over the place. We don't want that. Well, and now we need longer surface-to-air missiles because, now we need to protect our air support. Now we need, more land-to-land missiles because we need to reach further behind because, we got to defend against the artillery that are taking our tanks. And the next thing you know, we've spent another, couple $100 billion moving weapons over there.
Yeah, exactly. And let's put B3 up on the screen because this is also important context. You have in Germany right now the biggest NATO drill, the biggest NATO military exercise, I'm reading from DW, quote, since the military alliance was formed in 1949, and Germany is serving as the host and the logistical hub. So this is happening right now from June 12th to June 23rd. 250 aircraft, up to 250, will be stationed across 6 military bases with 25 countries taking part. The U.S. alone is sending 100 aircraft across the Atlantic over to this drill. And now here is a quote from someone at the German Institute for International and Security Affairs, Torben Arnold. He says, quote, of course, this sends a clear signal saying that even though this airspace is extremely busy, they are prepared to say, we will defend every centimeter of NATO territory. Every centimeter of NATO territory. We've got Sweden about to join NATO probably in a month or so. And all of this really, really, really fine line that is being towed, every fine line that's being towed with the equipment that keeps getting sent over, the intelligence reports that keep coming out is happening in the context of this really fragile ecosystem, NATO ecosystem, and really fragile balance with 2 nuclear powers essentially engaged in a proxy war.
Hey guys, if you like that video, go to breakingpoints.com, become a premium subscriber, and help us build the best independent media organization on the planet.
That's right. We're subscriber funded. We're building something new. We want to replace these failing mainstream media organizations.
So again, to subscribe, it's breakingpoints.com.